The report released in September was presented to the General Assembly's Third Committee earlier Wednesday, finding that Israel violated international humanitarian law and the Palestinian people's right to self-determination. Actions that were in stark contravention of the International Court of Justice advisory opinion in July that Israel's continued occupation of the Palestinian territory was unlawful.
That Israeli authorities have implemented a concerted policy to destroy Gaza's healthcare system. Our report also concludes that Palestinian detainees were subjected to persistent mistreatment by Israeli authorities amounting to torture as a war crime and crime against humanity.
Cites World Health Organization data that between October 7th last year and July 30th this year, Israel carried out 498 attacks on healthcare facilities in Gaza, also citing Israel's justification that Hamas was using hospitals for military purposes, including as command and control centers. The report recommends that the government of Israel immediately end its unlawful occupation as determined by the ICJ, immediately cease targeting medical facilities, staff and vehicles, among other measures, while recommending to all UN member states that they cease aiding or assisting in the commission of ongoing violations.
What does justice really look like?
We pressed Pillay on what legal accountability might look like.
Direct links with judicial organizations, but our mandate requires us to collect, preserve, gather evidence and share that evidence for judicial adjudication. We shared information relating to the existence or proof of genocide with the South African legal team in respect of their application before the ICJ, and I announced that we will share information with any state or any judicial institutions that make similar requests to us. So that's the extent of our role. We're dedicated to gathering evidence with the goal of ensuring accountability. So it's a key role. At the moment, there is no other organ of the UN with an investigative mandate.
As the Commission highlighted, the number of children being killed in this conflict, most notably in Gaza since October 7th last year, has been unacceptably high.
Kids aren't terrorists. And yet, between what happened in southern Israel on the 7th of October and what has happened since then, we have had thousands and thousands of kids killed. And that's not even including those who are injured, those who are under the rubble, those who have lost limbs. It's said that the amputations of limbs of children is the greatest in any conflict in recorded modern warfare. Kids who have lost parents. You know, I wonder when the current Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu talks about finishing off Hamas. I wonder about what the 1 million children in Gaza will be doing in 20 years' time. The conflict in Gaza is an Israeli terrorism creation factory.
Asked about calls for Israel's suspension from the UN, a decision that could be taken by the General Assembly, similar to apartheid South Africa's suspension in 1974, Sidoti turned the question on its head.
That your colleagues in Israel might ask is of Netanyahu, and that is, why do you bother? I mean, he calls the Secretary-General an anti-Semite. We get called anti-Semites. There have been dozens of United Nations resolutions, including binding resolutions of the Security Council, that have been ignored. He comes here to the General Assembly like a 21st century Khrushchev, banging the desk. I mean, Monday he'll take his shoe off and start thumping it. UNRWA is being kicked out, called a terrorist organisation. 210 around about UNRWA staff have been killed. The question to ask is of the Israeli Prime Minister, why do you bother?
The Commission also called on the State of Palestine and the de facto authorities in Gaza to ensure the protection and safe release of all hostages immediately and unconditionally, ensuring that civilians are not used as human shields, and thoroughly and impartially investigate and prosecute violations of international law, including the targeting of medical facilities in Israel. Sherwin Ricebees, SABC News, New York.